like there? Because you said, you were telling me earlier that you left before the fall of communism, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So my name is Thomas, my last name is Kucharski. Don't even bother. My accent is a little bit from New Jersey, so I don't have Polish accent, I have New Jersey accent. So I hope you understand me. So I was born in Poland, which was Eastern Bloc. Pretty much we have the same system, Russia, Czech Republic, Yugoslavia, all this country. It's been called socialism originally. However, long time ago I asked my teacher what is the difference between true communism and socialism, which we currently have. And the answer was that there will be, in true communism, there will be no money. So government will still control and own means of production and basically everything material. And the purest form of communism, you're not allowed to own anything in all. Maybe toothbrush, utensils, and everything should be shared for common good, of course. And once we accomplish this, there will be no money as in circulation, like as a source of all evil. We will just share everything we make together. Then we really will construct true communism. And for them, you see, like you heard that idea of progressivism here, it never stays the same. It's always going deeper, ideologically deeper into that moment when you don't own nothing, you don't make any new decisions. You're being basically dehumanized and subject, and you don't have any property of rights of any kind. So to me, I express my opinion, this is absolutely slavery to me. This is definition of absolute slavery. So they get mad at me, of course. I did a lot of push-ups. I get quickly in good shape because I was a boy when I said that, thanks to God, because if that would be later, it would be way worse. And you have no right to have opinions, you have no right to educate yourself. So besides economical misery, which is guaranteed, there will be shortage of everything, there will be lines for food, there will be no availability of anything. There will be also moral misery, because if you have children who are starving at home, you will take some manners into your hands to provide for these children. You know, your morals will drastically change. And if your kids didn't eat for 3 days, you will steal food for them, don't you? I mean, I will. And then you have intellectual misery, because limited to any good information, any good books, any other way of thinking than communistic way of thinking is absolutely forbidden. There is no access to information. You have one TV channel or two when there's non-stop propaganda. Everything at school is like indoctrination machine. It's just being like that. So people are incredibly miserable, and anyway, I'm sure. And I think it's attack on everything what's human. It's trying to create society of dehumanized machines who are only good for work. It's terrible. It's just, I don't think there is more disgusting and more dehumanizing system ever invented in history of humanity. Like here in US, I do believe that the Constitution and the rights guaranteed by Constitution, which are sent from God, as we all know, are alienable. You cannot take them away. We have rights to pursue happiness. We have right to make our own decision. We have right to educate ourselves the way we feel like. The total contrast of the country I grew up in. You have economical freedoms here. You can open your own business. You can attend school of your choice. However, you got to work hard. Just a concept, you know, just saying. You can do with your life whatever you please. What a contrast. You can access any information you wish. You can read any type of books you want. You can live where you want. I mean, there is endless of why this system is so much superior than where I grew up. It's a mind-blowing. Why some people in this country don't like it, I don't understand. I'm sorry. I cannot explain that to you.
Okay, thanks. Quick question. With going into the military as you did, was that a choice that was up to you, or was that something that was just, you became of age and that was something you had to do?
There is absolutely no draft. It's mandatory. Everybody has to go. I mean, there is draft, yeah. You have to go. When you're 16, you register, or even 15, and at 17, if you don't have good excuse, you're in. That's what happened to me. And everybody goes. They find something for you. It's mandatory, which to a certain extent would help some people here, but that's a digression.
So it was directly into the military, and then you said, explain the process of what happened when you ended up getting out. We were talking about that earlier.
I mean, this is a little bit funny because the systems start falling apart, and basically they dissolve my unit. They send us all home. They says there is nothing to eat in the kitchen, so guys. And you know, the brass, they sold all the equipment and the fuel and everything they could to farmers, and they were basically drinking and selling stuff, and that was a complete disaster.
So the military and government structure at that time was falling apart. What was society itself like outside of the military? What was happening with society in general at that time?
So they opened the border, and whoever have half brain, they get some beat up car, drove to Germany, purchase bunch of items, clothing, anything, literally anything, food, cigarettes, washing machine, TV, anything they could put in the trunk. They bring it back, start selling it because market was completely empty. And people starting their own businesses. When the government coal mine was closed down, people start digging by hand, and they dig a couple bags of coal, bring them to market and sold them, I mean, to buy food. So capitalism and free market took over almost overnight, instantly. It's just like a second nature of people, you know, when you don't have resources, you're taking care of yourself. American way, just saying.
Was it, what was going on with, let's say, hospitals and stuff at the time? Was it kind of the same thing happening with the border being opened up? Did supplies just suddenly come in, or what was the kind of situation there?
So same thing, people were improvising, and yeah, there were cases of medical personnel traveling to Germany, and they were very generous and open, so a lot of that stuff was gift. Red Cross and churches, of course, they were very active in collecting donations and bring back. So that was distributed, and people started kind of living the best they could. And also, the new government, the new elections, they changed everything. They basically transformed the economy from socialistic government control into basically free market economy in like 3 months. It was very painful in the beginning for a lot of people, especially those ones who are used to obeying basically on the government spoon. But on the end, today this is modern country. In 10 years, we catch up with most of the Europe economically, and it's a modern country with normal economy, normal life, when people can prosper and work on themselves. And I mean, communism is like basically living in prison, prison camp. Freedom means everything. So I was several years traveling in Europe, living in Europe. So I came here in 98. 89-ish. Yeah.
All right. I'm sure we'll have a few more questions later. Thanks, Maz. Marek, how about, could you tell us a little bit about yourself growing up?
Yeah, so I think, as Thomas said, that everything was kind of under the same umbrella. Everything was very similar politically, but there were some differences here and there. And me, you know, I wasn't having a family. I was a kid, you know, growing up. I had left there in '91. I was in like second year of college, and you know, so I was really not providing for my family, didn't have that, but I had noticed some things, and you know, like lots of things were kind of fairly easy, and the idea, it's something that, that I was really glad to hear that Poland had made its turnaround, because we were talking when the communism was kind of falling down, is that it may take a generation. It may take a generation for those people to realize, hey, I can do things on my own. I don't have to wait for the government to tell me what to do, because when communists took over in '48 in Czechoslovakia, they basically seized all the property. Whoever had any ownership, they basically took it all by force if they had to. And those that had resisted, I'm sure, didn't have a good future in the future such a country because they resisted, you know, there's things like that. And when the communism had fallen, some of this property have come back and was back, you know, redistributed back. But when I was there, like I said, I was a student, and definitely indoctrination was there all the time. And you know, you don't know it while you live through it. You kind of really realize when you come over here to free country or things like that. There was regularly, because of the controlled economy, regularly things were not on the store shelves. And I think that probably Czechoslovakia hit it almost the best of almost the Eastern Bloc. In Poland, there were some changes in the 80s that were kind of like a little squashed. I mean, 1969 there was a kind of revolution from inside in Czechoslovakia, and then, you know, the Soviet troops and other the Warsaw Pact countries came in and squashed that, replaced the leader. Hungary had 1956, you know, revolution. So there was lots of different attempts to do that. But when you have a system that is run by one party, imagine, any one world, any country that has many parties, suddenly only one party is in charge. What would it look like after a while? Just total control. And even if you somehow won the election over there, the Communist Party in the Constitution is trying to be the leading party, so there's no way you can change it, really. So, as a kid, growing up over there, I had it fairly easy, but there's some things I've noticed, like, you have apprenticeships here, and people go to learn a skill. Over there, as good as the idea is that you only take what you need, in the socialism, and you give all you can, and in communism, just like Thomas said, you wouldn't need anything more than you really need, and you would give everything you can, People still were somehow selfish, and it wasn't really according to the communist, manifesto or something, so it could be punished, but lots of people went into industry to be able to draw from there for themselves. So it was, selfishness was everywhere, even though it was not meant to be part of the mantra. So there's like, hey, I need something, but I know somebody who can get it for you. And get it means steal it. And that was normal, that was under that system. So the idea of socialism, of communism, of kind of utopia is sold, and that's what's danger about it, because they talk nicely and they say, hey, if you're sick, we'll take care of you. If you're hungry, we'll feed you. And you have a right to work. Means if you want to work, you will work. We'll give you whatever work. So it all sounds really good until you, and I can't believe when we talk about it, because there's been 50, 60, 80 years of communism or socialism or communist-run countries of proof of concept. That's not good. So I can't believe he's talking about it. But the lack of information, lack of honesty in the media everywhere is probably the biggest cause. And politicians, even, everywhere in the world, I can't really blame them, because they go there and some of them want to help and do, and some of them are there for themselves. So if they lie, that's okay. But if media lies, that is totally different. They should not. And they're just not telling you what you're supposed to hear. Or even the media there was all state controlled, so you heard nothing about any kind of like catastrophes or environmental disasters. It's all squashed. So suddenly, when you got some, like with Gorbachev, Glasnost, and Perestroika, you got that suddenly there was explosions happening, and people like, what's going on? It was just the fact that now they're being told about. They were always happening. There was always atrocities here and there, big, small, There was in the 50s on the Stalinistic regime. I didn't live through it, but I've heard there was people disappearing because they didn't agree with the mantra, and they never heard from again. So I didn't live through that. So my take is somehow different, but it's Thomas pretty much kind of hit the nail on the head. He just went for the last question first, explained why not, because I totally agree.
If I can add something to it, there were several intents to protest and revolt against the regime, true peaceful protest, which I mean people assembly and perhaps hundreds, perhaps thousands, perhaps several factories, they stop working. However, no property has been destroyed, They didn't even ask for demolish the system. They were just asking for decent living conditions, decent wages, and no food for them and for their children. And anytime such a thing occurred, there was several of them, the famous in Czechoslovakia, like you mentioned, they were always brutally squashed by military. Basically, everybody was killed or beat up or sent somewhere or disappeared. Main reason they were successful in maintaining their regime for so many years, we didn't have guns. Plain and simple, they did, we didn't. So I don't care who you know, how tough you are, what you want to do. If you start striking and they come over and shoot you and you cannot shoot back, you're gonna lose, always gonna lose. So guns are a very important tool for keeping democracy and freedom alive. So that's why we have Second Amendment here, just saying, you know. And another thing I would like to add what my partner says, that there was always free market. The idiocy of the economy under communism, socialism, or Democrats for that matters. Look, leftists are leftists. This is all semantics. I don't care. If they ideologically identical, they are leftists to me. I will not argue who is communist, who is socialist, who is national socialist, who is Democrats. They are leftists. I'm sorry if I offended somebody, but that's the truth. So I don't play these games. If you subscribe to certain ideology, which is Marxism, politically, culturally, and economically, you are leftist. You can call yourself communist, nationalist, whatever, I don't care. It's the same, exactly the same. These people think the same way. So free market. So for example, owning automobile in Poland, that was like a lifetime achievement. We used to make like this little tiny car because communists decided one day, okay, we will make sure that every Polish family has a small car to drive around. And the prices are always controlled by the government. It was not like supply and demand here. I don't care what you're making. If people don't buy it, you're gonna fail. Now, if you're making product and you price it reasonably so people will buy it, you're gonna get rich. Ask Henry Ford and other people in this country, you know how they get rich. So long story short, communists decide that the small Fiat, small car cost per se, like hypothetically 100,000 zloty, because that's a reasonable price for it. All right. Of course, there was more buyers than they could supply, because for that price it was absolutely impossible to produce this car. They have to supplement it, so they didn't have money to supplement it, so they couldn't produce enough cars, because everything was like that. However, there was a black market. Sure, if you want to buy a car, beat-up car, no brand new, cost 10 times more. But it was available on the free market. So was meat, so was everything imaginable. Because that was that underground economy. Of course, they tried to squash it at any cost. You could buy literally everything on the black market. However, the price compared to the government prices were like 10, 20, 50, or even more. It's just ridiculous. So that's the stupidity, idiocy of the system as far as economy goes, and and human rights too. But just 2 cents about Second Amendment. To me, this is right to defend yourself. I was stunned when one of the justices of Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor, wrote down that people basically have no right to self-defense with guns. So that's a justice on the Supreme Court. They don't believe you have right to shoot somebody if somebody attacking your children or another innocent human being who cannot defend themselves, including yourself. So this is not really about gun. Gun is only a tool to defend myself against multiple attackers, or defend my family, or defend those who cannot defend themselves. They don't believe in that. That's why they don't like Second Amendment. It's not really about guns. I mean, is a shotgun okay? Is a handgun okay? Is a AR-15 okay? I don't know. I mean, it's irrelevant. Is a one-shot musket okay? Maybe. It doesn't matter to me. It's just 2 cents. If you would have guns, and that's the first thing communists always did. Oh. Confiscate all the weapons they could possibly find at any cost. If we would have guns, I don't think they would last that long.
Yeah, like Thomas said, I was going to add that it's a tool, like arsenal of freedom, and so is the truth. So is the ability to be able to tell what those had happened, not being manicured news. One of the things that was amazing to me, and this was right at the end of the, when communists kind of fell in '89, I was still there. The news, every time there was a news, it was always commentators talking about what in the background muted what the leaders, the party was talking about. You never ever heard from the people directly. And maybe there was a speech once in a while, but what was amazing, they suddenly turned on the audio of the person, and he was like deputy secretary, and I'm like, it's just almost like the hair goes back on your neck. This person's an absolute idiot. What is going on? And didn't dawn on me until I was here for about 10, 15 years. I was like, so who's running the show? If this guy, the head of the party, wouldn't be able to, walk a dog in the park, we're going to trust him seriously, who's running the show? Amazing. So the arsenal of freedom, obviously, the weapons to be able to defend yourself and defend your idea, and so is the freedom to be able to say what you see, what's happening, and then shutting down the weapons and shutting down your freedom to be able to make a post. That's the same act that they do, and then of course directing you to not to say this because that's uncouth or politically incorrect. That's another tool that has been used forever. Here.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I want to get to Tim. You grew up here in the United States on the plains of Iowa, but you went to China and lived there for a while as a missionary. Could you tell us a little about that and kind of the things that stuck out to you as far as how the way of life was affected and just how society was. We had talked before just how their viewpoint just was pretty stuck as far as how they saw things coming from the party.
Sure. Well, unlike Mark and unlike Thomas, who lived in communist countries, I just visited a communist country. I lived in China for about 2.5 years and was a teacher on the campus there, and Julie and I. And I think that for us, we got the red carpet as foreigners, because everybody living in China, different people experience communist China differently. And it depends on what city you live in, depends on what province you live in. Way up in the northeast, Xinjiang, very oppressive. Jiangsu, where we live, more tolerant. My cousin lived in Xinjiang for 30 years, married a Chinese gal there. Leased 100 acres from the communist government, raised trees, and that's how he made a living, but he was a missionary also. But in Xinjiang, he had 100 employees. They were all Uyghurs, which are Muslim Chinese. His supervisor over his 100 Uyghurs became Christian. And he went to Urumqi, the capital of Xinjiang, and he bought some Christian literature. And they said, we're going to have to throw you in jail for 15 years. Well, he had a lawyer there and said, well, that offense should only be 10 years. And they changed the offense, even though he didn't do what they changed it to, so he could get 15 years. So he spent 15 years in jail. Just got out last year. He went in 2008, which is the year they had the Olympics in China. And so the world's attention was on China at that time. But they tend to, and some officials in cities and different cities are more tolerant. They enforce things more than others. Depends on what you bribe them with, I think, different things like that. But it's, for a lot of foreigners, they'll roll out the red carpet. Even historically, 20s and 30s Soviet Union, a friend of mine who's worked for the CCP, now he's in Shanghai. He's an attorney for them. He's way up, but he's longing to come to the United States. But he told me in the 20s and 30s, during the Depression era, the United States wasn't particularly doing that well. My parents graduated from high school in 33. They didn't have indoor toilet till 46, 47, for example. So the United States wasn't real prosperous, but people would visit Soviet Union from the United States and they'd get the red carpet. And so that when they come back to the United States and sit in panels like this, glowing report about how great Soviet Union is or how great China is. I won't give you that report because through so many friends that I've known over there, despite the red carpet, boy, it's a terrible, terrible government system. But he was just saying in those days, 20s and 30s, the people going over there. Remember Bernie Sanders? He went on his honeymoon to the Soviet Union. I mean, he probably had a red carpet also. Even in the 40s, 50s, my friend who's, like I said, in the CCP now, but he was telling me that in the 40s and 50s, a lot of times foreigners would come to China and they would live there and visit there. They'd get the red carpet there. But while they were there, you know, they really wouldn't see what it's really, really like. They might be given money. They might even be given a house to live there. Some of them were even given wives, given spouses to be there. And because they take, where would they get the spouses? From rich people. The rich people in China, their wives would be taken away and given to the poor people. And the poor people, I'm talking in the 40s, 50s during the revolution, the poor people then would want to fight for the Communist Party. They feel allegiance then to the Communist Party, right? So those are the kind of decisions. It's like being in a prison camp, like Thomas said. You've lost your freedom in these countries, and but for us it was probably pretty nice. As a teacher there, as a professor there, every one of my classes, usually a class of 100, twice as big as this room usually, maybe 3 times. The students, there's always 2 monitors in every class, and they were in the CCP. They're students, but they had to listen to me and they had to critique me, and if I said anything wrong, they'd need to report it to the administration. And in fact, I was reported one time, and so I had to go to the administration to talk with Ray. I don't know Ray's Chinese name, but I talked with Ray, and he said, Tim, if you tell anybody we've had this conversation, I'll deny it. And I said, well, yeah, what do you want to tell me? And he said, you got to be more careful about what you teach in your class. Now, I was teaching Western civilization, which is, you know, you're teaching Christianity. A lot of times you're teaching about the Reformation. You're teaching about Martin Luther. I was teaching about the difference between Islam and Christianity, or Christianity and Catholicism, or Protestantism. I mean, I had to teach all these subjects there, but I got in a little bit of trouble because of it. And I had to remind Ray, I said, Ray, I talked to you before classes started, and I said a lot of this is religious material, Western civilization, and the history of Western civilization. And he said, yeah, but you need to be more careful. But I said, you told me that as long as I taught from the book, I was okay. And I was just teaching from the book, right? But those are the kind of things you live under when you live in a communist regime like that. And it's sobering. Anyway, those are a couple of experiences just in teaching, I suppose I can mention.
Yeah, if I can add something to it.
Yeah.
That was entire like a department of ministry dedicated to take care of foreigners, especially with the Western countries. They have beautiful hotel for you, plenty food of everything. They even have villages of factories when these American intellectualists visit in 60s and even beginning on 50s and 60s and 70s, when they were invited and they showed them brand new factory, thousands of happy workers, beautiful villages, plenty to have everything, happy life, to make them think that this is how the entire country looks like. They never showed them gulags or regular factory when people work and die, literally work to death in terrible conditions. So these intellectuals later came here and they went to Columbia and what's that place in California, Berkeley, and they start teaching that this is a wonderful system. People are happy. They have free healthcare, free transportation, free education. It's nice, it's clean, it's plentiful of everything. We went to store. What are they talking about? There is tons of meat and fruits and vegetables, anything you need, bread. But that was just built for them to see. That was all fake. That was actors. That was not true. And they could, of course, they could not free go to countryside or explore by themselves because it was dangerous, of course. So they have to stay there. And these idiots, they call them literally useful idiots. That was the term which they use for them. And they come here later and they start preaching that in universities and everywhere. What are you talking about? This is wonderful. We got to do it here. No, thank you. And
we would travel to some different towns, Nanjing, Beijing. We may spend a night in the hotel somewhere. And but you can't go to just any hotel.
No.
You got to go to government hotel.
For you,
If you're a foreigner.
for Americans.
Yeah, and my friend, I meet with this guy, he's a prosecuting attorney in Shanghai. I meet with him every week. But he told me most of those hotels are bugged. He said, you'll go to your hotel room as a foreigner, it's bugged. But it's kind of interesting. I'm sure I'm one of those idiots, but at least I
No,
can see
you
through it.
don't.
Most people don't see through this stuff.
Exactly.
I don't think. So it is kind of sobering. He would also say, this friend of mine, he lives a life of pretending. In communist country, you've got to pretend a lot. Like even 100 million Chinese communists, that's 1 in about 45 Chinese are communists. But of those people, you have to sign an oath to become communist, and that you will not be involved in any religious activity. He said if they caught him in a Zoom meeting with me, he'd disappear. He'd lose his life. He's comfortable one-on-one. He would never meet with me with more than just myself, 2 or 3 people. He just restricts it to just him and myself. And but he said that he has to pretend a lot. He has to pretend to be politically correct. He told me the other day we met, and he said, I feel kind of guilty today. I'm struggling with guilt. He's a new Christian. He said, I'm struggling with guilt. And I said, how's that? He said, well, I had to prosecute someone in court this week for sneaking out of the country to go to the United States to pass the bar, to take a bar exam as a lawyer. Now, I said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, I did the same thing 3 months ago. He himself snuck out of China, and he passed the California bar, which is one of the toughest ones. And but anyway, he said that he's feeling guilty because he had to prosecute this guy. It was a year's salary was the penalty, and he had to prosecute this guy for doing what he himself did, trying to get out of China.
Yeah, so I was gonna second that what both the gentlemen said about religious freedom, and I was not. I got to I found Christ here in the United States, but my paternal grandparents were both, I think, Greek Orthodox, so they went to the church there, and the churches existed there, and at least it was allowed. What was not allowed is to be able to be in power in the government while you were attending church. So you had to make a choice. You could either influence and be, if you're, be anywhere in a position of power, or be holding on to the church. My father did end up, he was in animal science, and then he went to, both of my parents did like evening school. My mom was a teacher, Slovak, French, and different things. And then he went into a Communist Party, and he was head of like the industry, some of the different things like that. And then he was taking his parents twice a year to the church across town. And he had to, when he took him, he had to drop him off about a block, 2 blocks off, and had them walk, because if somebody noticed that he had dropped his parents off, he could lose his position. So it was one of those things. And of course I remember I wasn't religious or anything like that at all growing up. So I remember when the teacher in school was making fun of a student in class for, I don't know if the student had voiced something, the classmate, about something about God, and so the student, the teacher was making fun of the student. I'm like, I was like kind of taken back, I'm like, how weird is that, because I don't understand what this religion is, but it doesn't sound like it's something that should be done, but it's part of the party. So if you cross that line, then you're out. And another thing about vehicles, there was about 20-year wait on the vehicles, like in East Germany, I believe, the Wartburg Trabant. I ended up working in one of the factories there for just a summer. But it was a lot of money up front when we got the vehicle. It was like a house here almost. It seemed like that much money. And not everybody had it, but there was plenty of buses, so you could get around. As long as you didn't miss the bus that went twice an hour someplace, then you were okay. The place where I lived, it was not very big, so that was not a big problem, but it was definitely one of those things. And then travel, as far as throughout the Eastern Bloc countries, that was pretty easy. You could go there. Now, my family, when I was 4 years old, to Odessa and the Black Sea in the current Ukraine, in the Crimea region. My parents, I remember, brought all the food with them because you never know what food is there available in Russia or Ukraine. And it wasn't as bad in there, but in Russia, there was like, you would know when food shows up and there's 100, 200 people line waiting for the food to be able to get it. So it's definitely, scarcity was commonplace. It wasn't as bad in Czechoslovakia, and I was also a kid, you know.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that responsibility and to be able to provide for a family. But there's definitely things that I'll probably have a slightly different view on it, but the results of it and seeing it back and seeing the difference here is humongous. It's just mind-boggling. When I came to the U.S., it was just like somebody came to the U.S. like, what, you have everything in a store? I was there, I was amazed. Or like, for example, the bathrooms over there, and this is different now, you know, but the bathrooms were free, but you had to pay for the toilet paper. And it was amazing to me. It's like,
they give you that.
this much, exactly. And a couple of things, and usually the worst service right there was like they put an angry old lady to deal with that. And if you wanted more, she would shout you out or what, and if you think, so in the US, you would say, hey, perfect opportunity, I can make some money, or I can provide a service, even if it's free. If you did that outside of the bathroom, you'd be put in jail because you were just messing with their system. You were the ugly capitalist, right? Making money off of the people, off of the workers. Lots of mantra, lots of dogma, whatever, you know, they talk about the communists. There's lots of big words that they use all the time to beat you down over there. And again, I hardly had any contact with them, but I saw that.
Social justice, equality.
Oh yeah.
I know those words
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
I heard them here too.
I was crossing from Hungary to Ukraine once, and at the border crossing, I had to go to the restroom, and I was waiting quite a while. The line was so long, about a mile back, I just ran ahead to the restroom, and I was just waiting for a toilet to open up that had toilet paper in it, and I finally realized none of these toilets have toilet paper in them. You got to bring your own, and I didn't. I guess I didn't cross that T and dot that I before I got there.
You know, to a certain extent, like shortage of toilet paper, that was a way to basically humiliate people. Because there was no reason that they could not produce enough toilet paper for everybody. It was just paradox of the system was kind of, it's hard to explain how these people think because they're not normal people to me. They have their own way of, very, very twisted way of thinking. As far as faith goes, they could never take it away. I mean, communists believe that there is no place for faith, especially in Christianity, whatsoever in society, period. Their dream is to eradicate Christianity completely out of human lives, once forever, and burn all books, close the churches, and it never happens. I mean, I was coming in Russia, convert churches into like cement storages or some other stupid things, just to humiliate people. In Poland, they couldn't do it because then they will have to kill millions. They couldn't take the faith away. And I think Poland is mostly Catholics, but Christianity doesn't matter to me really. Details. Election of Pope, Polish Pope, that was end of them. I think that one person, that pure fact that somebody was elected from such a country like mine to such a position, and first time he visited Poland, there was like 2 million people went to see him. They have to lose. And the faith in God, Christianity was fundamental tool to get rid of communism. So to a certain extent, to me, it's synonym with. And, as far as automobile and access to it, to me, this is also another tool of freedom. If you have car, you're free to go where you want on your own terms. You can choose the road, you can choose the place, you can choose the time. You can, you know, freedom of the highways. This is what part of America, to have your own car and go where you want, and company of who you want. You can go by yourself. You can pick people who goes with you. You can visit any place you want. Nobody will stop you as long as you got money for gas. But if you work, we can pay you gas. And the mass transportation system, like, it's all depends on government. I tell you, I remember winter when I went to school was like minus 30 outside. A bus show up and they couldn't open the door. And we start saying, hey, open the door. It's broken. So fix it. I don't care. I should be here in 5, so I am. And kiss my you-know-what. And he took off. Just stupidity, like senseless, idiotic, moronic. He gets paid. He doesn't care, you know. He couldn't open the door, but he still does his route. And then you have to be squeezing between people. Sometimes the bus is broken, sometimes show up, sometimes doesn't. The schedule only exists for reference, you know. Just they can be there, they may be late, they may be early, doesn't matter. They may be full, nobody, so you gotta wait several buses until they take you. And there is pouring or freezing, or you completely here, you go to your car, you turn your car in, it's nice and warm and cozy and brand new, and you can go anywhere, you can throw it in 4-wheel drive. I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful thing. This is freedom. And of course, liberal progress, don't forget that word, always progress. I hear that always. We're always progressing. We're never gonna stop. Deja vu.
Yeah, so that was kind of going to be my next question is, with how they talked about the party and how they talked about the great plan for society and suppressed any other ideas, what did you see a similar correlation in American politics as far as how just either the semantics, how things were talked about, the concepts of their policy that they're wanting to push? Do you guys see a similarity in what the left would be pushing now here in the United States with what you guys lived under or lived in?
Oh yeah, scary similarities, and the fact that I didn't even understand what I was watching back then. Now I understand. It was just one view, and that's it. You know, what do we want to say? This is what goes. So imagine the news here would be just one-sided. We almost have that. Just you get punished for doing something, or like environmental. You know, we're so much better here in U.S. than the rest of the world, like in China or anywhere else. Like it's almost amazing how much better we're here. Yet we still get kind of dumped on about this. I mean, those buses and everything diesel. It was smelly. There was always a smell in the winter in the air of coal burning. You know, here we're saying, oh, particulates. You know, we have to fix it. We have to pass a bill. We have to do this. Diesel always just smelly. So it was always the opposite of what they said, that they would care for the environment. I mean, so it's just the mantra and what they say here, how they try to, they introduce a word, and if you attach yourself to it and you run with it, then you're helping them push that agenda even slower or faster. So we gotta be thinking about it. What is it? What is it that they're pushing? Why this word? Like, you know, like I hate to say this because one thing is that the first responders are the people like the police, medics, and all this stuff. But the word first responder, if you are a person and you have a family, that's you're the family, you're the first responder, because you don't, you don't depend on somebody else, which would be the government that runs this stuff. So even that thing, which I think nobody really takes offense to, first responder, but it's something that those that push the progressivism has given us, and we're just taking it kind of blindly. There's so many things, you know, like lots of different examples that exist, and how we use the language that is allowing them to push us further away from what is reality, what's going on. I don't know.
No, the mass media in the U.S. completely reminds me the message I heard when I was growing up, especially, you know, those couple big ones. And the message of leftists in this country, the progressives, are absolutely identical to the message, to the idea I heard growing up. That's not subject to discussion in my mind whatsoever. That's how I kind of getting upset, and at the same time they scare me a little bit, because I know how this gonna end up. I experienced this on my own skin, how this function, and I don't want that. I mean, I believe in free market capitalism. That's the only way the country can be economically prosperous. They don't. Look at the role of government in economy, like Democrats wants to dictate more and more and more. Even if somebody owns means of production, they still want to dictate what you're gonna make, for how much, who you're gonna sell. Look at this electrical car push. I mean, everybody who reads a little bit will understand that this is not solution to environmental crisis of any kind. It's another way of them basically forcing their will on people. It's not against free market because people don't want to buy that. They're not functional. There is not enough power to run these millions of electrical vehicles. They not function in cold. They have very short range. Charging takes forever. They're stupid, basically, period. And the wars, they're not solution to environment, to the global warming, whatever they want to call it. It's a climate change conveniently these days. And you know, I do understand that no country has completely free capitalism, free capitalistic market. Even here in US, we have political economy. Government make decisions and policies which influence capitalism. However, the core of the idea is still that individual or group of individual owns the production, means of production, and they sell. If people don't buy their product, they go out of business. And that's the economy, that's how economy works. And then we got the personal freedoms, like in this country we have Constitution and Bill of Rights. I hope everybody is aware of them and what they mean. Leftists don't believe in personal freedom. It's all collectivism to them. We all groups. And I believe that each individual is a free human being created by God and should be only judged by his actions, words, and content of his character, period. I don't believe in classes. That's India or feudalism in Europe or communism. Look at what they're doing here. Gays here, lesbians here, transgenders here, blacks here, Christians, of course, not there. You know, they're creating those classes and they're pinning us against us. They try to hate, they try to create that atmosphere of hatred, distrust, and we don't talk to these people. That's what they always been like that. They don't believe in individual freedom whatsoever. They don't believe in constitutional freedom. They don't believe you should have any kind of freedom. They will not say that openly, but this is where they're going to. It's just madness, in my opinion. These people needs to be stopped. This country has to come to its roots.
Seems to me that a lot of the liberals that are progressives in our country, and maybe a lot of the communist leaders in the countries you guys grew up in, were protected from the policies they try to advance. Whereas you guys and the rest of us will probably bear the blunt of those policies. But the people making those policies, they themselves don't live through the consequence of those policies, it seems like. But and I think we minimize what a threat communist China is. I'll speak from China there. But just as it's an enemy, you know, and everything they make is really a spy tool, you know, like Yahweh telephones. They can hear every word you say. When we met in China, Craig would always put his telephone in the microwave, so they couldn't hear what we're saying. I've heard, that's what Snowden did, that movie Snowden. He put his telephone in the microwave. I've Googled that, and they say some microwaves that work, but some microwaves that doesn't work, I guess. But anyway, they really do just control the media. Yahweh, TikTok is another one where they try to evaluate who you are as a person through their system. They track your weaknesses, your race, political affiliation, your views of CCP. They call it, and this is from my friend who's the guy in Shanghai who's in the CCP, pretty high up. They call it behavioral analysis system, which can really monitor the people that buy and use their devices. Automobiles too. Trump mentioned this in the RNC meeting this week, that you know, a lot of automobiles manufacturers are going into Mexico, and many of those are Chinese factories. And the automobiles that they're producing in those factories have cameras and mics. And my friend was telling me that as you drive your car, they can see you, and they can hear what you're saying in the Chinese-built automobiles. And so that these vehicles, the telephones, TikTok, things like that, are really spy tools that Communist China can use for for behavioral analysis, in their behavioral analysis system. So I would not have known, I'm not an IT guy, but some of these guys are that shared that with me.
Yeah, but talking about equality, you guys probably familiar with George Orwell and book 1984, Big Brother. There is another book, Animal Farm. There is a sentence in that book which says, all animals are equal, however, some of them are more equal than others.
Yeah.
And trust me, when there was nothing to eat, there was endless lines for bread and soldiers on the streets and stuff. The wives of the prime ministers, they were flying to Paris, get a haircut. And their sons went to Cambridge and Oxford to educate themselves. And they did have access to cars, and they were living in houses, beautiful villas, with the security and everything. So don't kid yourself. They don't believe that equality applies to them whatsoever. Once they gain that power, forget it. They have Coca-Cola, they have French wine, oysters, stuff we never even heard of. They have everything. So they live different lives than the rest of us, trust me. So yeah, so no, it's not like equality for all of us. It's for all of us, but not for them. For us, misery, everybody. Regardless if you're a doctor or plumber or guy who sweeps the streets. I mean, everybody is making misery, and that's how the system works. It's about total control.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the reward for going along with the system. And if, as long as you stay in a system, be in a system, you're part of the tool, you can do that. But as soon as you're out completely. And then some of the things like leaving, like going to the Western countries or anything like that, you would have to get a passport, of course. And if they denied your passport, then you would have to just flee somehow. But if you were given a passport, you still have to request, from the foreign country visa, which would work. But then if the whole family wanted to go, no, absolutely not, because they knew you were going to defect. So it's like people say, and this is something that we're just not teaching, here, at least like Stalin had killed about 3/4 of his officers when he came to power because they didn't go along with him. So imagine surviving on 25% of your officers, and only the ones that got replaced, the ones that believe the system, that went along with the system. So that's something that should be taught, but it's not, and that's probably the biggest thing. It's always the truth will always win, and if you're given a choice, you always choose freedom, because if you're given this the freedom and this slavery, and if you really see everything, you will choose the freedom, because the slavery has a lot more negative to it. So like socialism or communism, or I guess socialism, some people say, well, it's gonna work. It will only work for those that are the most lazy, that want to be given stuff, and it will always work for those that don't mind abusing and others, which is not good either. So yeah, I totally second is that those people that were in power, they had everything they wanted to, but those that didn't, so on the backs of, so it's completely opposite what they're selling. And some of the things that I was going to mention is like the Potemkin village, that people were coming in the 30s or whenever, they showed everything good. So something like that just happened to us in here, which was almost like opposite. So I think in California, they cleaned up the city. That wasn't cleaned up at all for a long time when the Chinese Premier Xi came over. So it's amazing to me they don't clean up for their own people. But when somebody else from at least competitive, if not adversary nation comes to show up, why not leave it the way it is? It's just like for you leaving it for Americans. So that kind of a red carpet has happening, and I've seen that. I see it a lot when people go and you go incognito to that country to find out really what's going on. But if you go as a movie star or rock star or something, you get totally different interest, totally different experience. So you should really realize, you should be smart enough to know that's what's going on. But they're just it's just tick for tack. I'll help you here, scratch my back, and that's ends up being kind of a tribalism.
Yeah.
Very much so. It's just not being real life, except under different circumstances. And those circumstances are there to benefit everybody else. Sell it as we help everybody, but the reality, we have so many different nations, just brutal dictatorships happening.
Yeah.
And we have so much history. I don't understand what's going on, why we are not teaching it. And it's only because it's being manicured and sold as a package.
one last question, and I'll open it up for them to ask you guys some questions. What is the one most jarring or startling thing you're seeing in American politics that society is kind of accepting completely, that you see as a danger sliding towards full-on socialism and communism?
No, definitely attack on faith, war on faith, basically, and war on constitution. One's a war of almost all amendments, my opinion. That's what this country was founded upon. Like I said, free market capitalism, constitutional rights, and the faith. And all of three are under attack, in my opinion. For now, perhaps nobody goes to jail for attending church, but this is only a matter of time. And for now, it's just propaganda only, but you try to encourage you first, gently, and later they can use other tools of persuasion, trust me. It's only a matter of time.
Mark?
There's probably a lot of things, but one of the things I've seen that was like during COVID, when these restrictions came in, that really had, so many of them had just opposite of normal, reasoning behind them. And there was immediately something that disproved what they were putting in. And the fact that it went around like a wildfire and so many people either complied with it or actually tried to embarrass you for not complying with an idiotic order, that was the most amazing to me. It's like, is anybody, are people so scared now? Do they not have faith? And do they not have open eyes that they will believe the propaganda? And that's what I saw. So that was one of the recent things that I saw. The scariest, just because that's all it is. It's just the propaganda,
Mm-hmm.
The push for social communism. Progressive.
After being there for 2.5 years, Tim, is there anything that you came back and saw American politics doing that you're like, wow, that looks eerily similar?
Well, I actually, for the most part, I did have a run in with the administration, but for the most part, I could stand up there and I went through the bridge diagram in class. I did teach from the book, Western Civilization. I also taught business ethics, which I used the 10 Commandments for the business ethics a lot, things like that. But those are things I don't even think I could teach in public schools here. You know what I mean? I'm not sure that I could have that freedom right here in the United States now, at least in a lot of school systems. John Mayer is very involved in the school boards in the area, kind of trying to help them become more conservative in their philosophy. And I know that he worked hard at the Fort Collins one. There was one liberal that lost their seat because they didn't file the paperwork to run in time. And because of that, the school board ended up with a 4-3 liberal conservative balance. I think it was, there were 7 of them, I forget now, but I think it was 4-3. And so anyway, there was a recent vote regarding the Liberty School in Fort Collins, one of the highest ranked schools in Colorado in all of its scores, math, reading, etc. But even though it's one of the highest rated schools, they had a vote whether to close it down, the school board. And they prevented the close down in a vote of 4-3. It was that close. And if we didn't get that one conservative in this last election, they may have closed down one of the best schools. But it's a Christian conservative school, charter school in Fort Collins, one of the best in the state. And even then, another philosophy was trying to close it down. So there's these battles going on that we face for sure in the educational system anyway.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Does anyone have a specific question that they would like to ask?
I mean, it's kind of hard to explain a very complex issue, and it's. Are you speaking? Yeah, go ahead, sir. It's for me. Or?
Do you have any insights on how to resist or oppose what's kind of coming along? It's sometimes slow and sometimes fast in America?
Well, we have political process in place still. We still have elections. Definitely, I would start not vote for Democrats, that's for sure. I know this is kind of I cannot tell anybody because I accepting the freedoms this country has to offer. So you can vote who you want. I will not say loud. However, I just see that this is a good start. And definitely educate yourself about history of this country, about founding fathers, about constitution, and the short but very rich history. So many things happen here. And know who you are. Don't let propaganda maybe brainwash you to the point that this is somehow bad country or an unjust country, or this is still the greatest country on the planet Earth. We're going through some problems, and there always will be problems, always. However, at the core of Americanism, just believe in it and act accordingly in daily life and the way you vote, the way you conduct yourself. And I got my own theory. It's very difficult to destroy this country too. I mean, you guys are pretty set in your values, so you know, a lot of people flirting with the dangerous ideas, but at the end, and you know, I think God to a certain extent choose America, so hopefully that suffices to. I mean, people talking about civil war around. I mean, everybody who saw combat before knows that's not the best way to do things. Yeah, it's better to avoid it at any cost. But through some kind of, maybe get more engaged, maybe get more active. And don't be afraid to say, we have freedom of speech in this country. It's of course limited a little bit, but be more open, because this is very common in US, like nobody wants to talk about politics. Everybody's afraid, really, kind of like in communism, you know?
Yeah.
We never talk politics openly. At night, we used to roll the windows down, put blankets everywhere, and turn the Radio Europa on very quietly, and we're just listening and discuss politics. Took a while to have political discussion, like, you know, me and Luke, we're friends, we work together and stuff, we're kind of the same. But took a while to get somebody to know, to really reveal my true political views. So don't let this happen here, because it seems like people are afraid of any controversy. I mean, if somebody tells you men can be pregnant, I tell him, what are you drinking? I mean, stop doing whatever you do, because science says so. No, your science is garbage. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say probably just, I mean, telling the truth and demanding, like, was demanding from the people that passed the laws to be held to the same account. Like, for example, the Affordable Health Care Act got passed in, I don't know, 2012, 2014, I don't know when it was. But
Obama's, yeah.
Yeah, but all of the members of Congress were exempt from that. That's like the first thing, the first red flag that founding fathers talked about. You know, they have to be held to the same laws, and they really should go there, serve, come back, and live with the laws that they do. And I'm talking, there's some good guys there, you know. So but you need to hold them. Everybody needs to kind of do the same thing, voice opinion, and kind of almost realize that. I was driving here into town, and you know, everybody's kind of used to those cruise controls now, adaptive, right? You set it to 70 mode, whatever it is, and pretty soon you get kind of busy, not really paying attention too much. I'm paying attention to the road, but not really using the pedal to know what you're doing. Suddenly you go, 50. Why am I going 50? Because I fell behind somebody who's a lot slower, and I kind of like fell asleep behind the wheel, as so many Americans had. And it's not like it's completely their fault. But there'd be so much of a push to shame you of speaking out. And over there, it was dangerous to talk politics. Yeah, I listened to Radio Free Europe, and I don't know what the punishment was, really, but I think you could be at least hauled over to the police, you know, whatever, question who else is, you know, or whatever. But it was in West Germany, probably, right? It was the Radio Free Europe. But so over there, it was dangerous because the government that would punish you for that. Here, you're gonna get punished by being ashamed. So we just need to realize that it's only the words, and it's things like that. When it comes to the point where you get fired from your job because you talk politics or you're doing something like zero yellow talk, then it becomes even more dangerous. But you just gotta realize, because we've been toned down so much that here we don't talk about the most important things that affect us all the time. And it's been kind of indoctrinated into us. Don't talk about this because it brings strife or something. Well, there's the other side that just pushes it, wedges it all the time, and it breaks us into parts, get us to to fight each other, and then we don't really pay attention to what they're doing. In Slovakia, there was a tale, and I think this was actually like Great Moravian Empire, like 800, 900. There was the leader had 3 sons, and he said, "Here's are the sticks together, and you gotta keep them together because they're strong. But when you pull them apart, they're all weak. You break them one by one. So e pluribus unum means something to us. It means a huge deal to what created America, as we know it. And there's lots of things that have happened and were allowed to happen or were put on for good pretenses, and they were actually not good, end up not being good. But the basic idea is that we still have competition here, competition with ideas, competition economically, and as long as we have that, I think we have a future, because bad idea in Marxist-run countries, there's no opposition to it, and it runs aground, and then no problem, we'll just rebuild, forget about those or whatever, and just run another bad direction. Here, there's a correction. So we have political correction, we have economically correction, and people will respond to that. And so we still have, it's this media that is gonna lie to you, even though they know that what the truth really is, and we've had recent examples of it. So I think just speaking out, just like everybody's been, people have been starting to wake up about this. It's just how far they have gone to be able to get enough public to go along, to get along. And if that happens, then we're just going in the direction that they push. And so that's the danger I see. But the opposite would be just, like I said, speaking out, getting active.
Yeah. And don't be afraid, there's way more of us than them, that's for sure.
So you said that things broke down in Poland, they weren't able to maintain it, and the other Soviet Union countries surrounding Russia. How is Russia and China doing now? Are they still like it was in Poland when it broke down there? And if so, how are they maintaining their structure?
I don't know that much about China. That's more question for. But Russia is not anymore a socialistic country. It's a capitalistic country, and economically they're not doing bad at all. They got tons of resources they can sell, and there is other market than Western Europe and us. There is India, there is China, there is so they going by. They just doing fine. So.
Why would they still be an enemy? Or are they?
It's ideological mostly. I mean, Russia is a very unique country. Of course, they against progressivism, especially cultural progressivism. They very nationalistic. And Putin is very clever, man. He uses that for his advantage because he is trying to convince them, you guys, this is great nation, great country with the very rich, which is true, very rich history and culture. And he resists immigration, he resists other ideas. He goes to church all the time. So he kind of creates that atmosphere when people believe that, and relatively economically they don't doing bad, even with the sanctions. So that keeps him in power. However, he's got, like every single Tsar of Russia, you see, their nature is completely opposite to you Americans. They don't believe, they believe in actually having a Tsar, having somebody rule over them. If you leave St. Petersburg or Moscow, if you travel like 100 kilometers down, you got villages with outhouses, well, when you gotta lower the bucket with the rope to get water, rubber boots, straw for mattress, and inside there is a picture of the icons, some icons of the saints in the past from the church they have, the Orthodox Church, and Vladimir Putin. Of course, because this is the new Tsar, the good Tsar who's taking care of us. That's all what they know. Oh, they have seven boys. One of them been sent to fight Ukrainians. Oh, he died. Yeah, but some officials from government show up, give us medal, give us $10,000 and brand new TV. So we got 8 more children to take care of. So it's okay. He's a hero. He died for the mother Russia. So it's all good. That's how they think. So this is a little bit different. And that's how they've been easy to actually seduce by whoever is in power, they follow. It's just the way they are, for the most part. As far as the stuff, watch some YouTube video. I mean, there's some crazy stuff going on. Certain things never change, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the dangers of believing in like a leader or somebody who does making decisions for you that are in your best interest, even though, I mean, what do people really agree on everything, right? Is that when you get used to that, you just stay with that, and then you are looking to one person to lead the nation or something like that. So true, like constitutional republic that we have here is something that relies on freedoms, relies on individual being the one that makes decisions for oneself, and then sending representatives over that are held liable. I mean, are held accountable for their decisions on these people's behalfs, and that's the best thing we have so far. Anything else have kind of devolved into kind of a inner club of people that rule, that can show kind of democracy to the rest of the world. Hey, we have actual elections, you know. Yeah, people vote for me 100% of the time because I'm that good, you know. So yeah, obviously something's fishy there, you know. But it's, yeah. Okay.
So, what do you guys make of cultural Marxism? Do you think it's overblown? Is it sometimes a concern, sometimes not a concern? Actually having seen real communism up close and lived under it or lived in close proximity to it, what's your perspective on that debate here in the US in recent years?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I probably haven't studied enough on it, but I've looked up, and about 8 out of 10 are talking about some kind of right-wing conspiracy that cultural Marxism is bad. So if you want to try to figure out what it is, it's difficult. So rather than probably saying cultural Marxism, we may have to say, okay, specifically what tenets are there that we're so for or against. So yeah, I didn't really get really good, idea on some of this, but if something bad being repackaged as something new, then I'm gonna go off the start. It's probably not a good idea.
So it's real and exists and is 100% well designed and works miracles for them. It's designed to destroy the society, to shake you believe in everything or question everything. Is basically gaslighting, we call them psychology, is questioning your own insanity. That's what I'm saying. Men can be pregnant, science says so. You know, wear your mask. 6 foot, not 3, not 7, 6 foot distance. And other stupid things. There is endless. I mean, we're watching media, we know. And it's basically designed to questioning everything and start believing in anything, because they confusing people to the point that people don't know anymore what is true, what is not, what to believe, what not to. And destroying fabric of society, I mean, as a Christian, we know the family is the most important component of any society. It's under attack, of course. There is alternative family. There is my family, your family. Even the questioning existence of a truth, like a universal value. They believe truth is relative. There is no such a thing like truth. I have different truth than you truth, you know? Somebody who weighs 600 pounds is healthy and perfectly okay. And that's his truth, not mine, you know? My truth is lifting weights, is being healthy, so. But they're questioning everything. And basically, it's, like I said, it's designed to destroy, make you crazy, basically. Create more chaos and more chaos and more craziness they possibly can. And gaslight you to the point that you will not believe in anything anymore. And there's attack of every institution, and you know. I mean, it's real, 100%. And where does all insanity came from? I mean, it comes from leading universities and is financed by certain entity, and you can follow up. You know, you can follow the money. You can find out who these people are and who are they do, what they're doing, and I know why exactly. They want to disorganize and confuse the society to the point they're gonna take over. It's destruction of the fabric of this country. I mean, it's dangerous, extremely dangerous. Look how many idiots they are here. You know?
All right, guys. Well, Tomas, thank you. Tim, thanks. One last thing. If you guys could when you came to the United States, what was the one thing that stuck out the most as to what, because you said it took about 15 years for you to start realizing some things.
Some of the things, like I go back, I'm like, whoa, is that what this is about?
Yeah, so what was the biggest thing that stuck out after coming out from that umbrella of being like, okay, wow, this is what was the most messed up in that society, or in that living that life? What was the biggest thing that stuck out?
I'm not sure if I was that aware of everything right away, but it's just probably just availability of things. It was just amazing, just kind of like consumer oriented. The kind of benevolent, like allowing you to have to bring you in, kind of like a advertisement for bringing you in, where you didn't have to really like you were brought in to like service. I think the service was the biggest thing, where you like, you know, not necessarily you didn't deserve it, but it was like everything was everybody else's, but nobody really owned it. You know, here it was like, here, this is what we can offer you, and come in. You know, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. It's just the openness of society seems like, and the people really nice, very, especially in the U.S., like would kind of are not really having prejudices as much. I mean, I was just talking to a person, and he's like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "Yeah, you probably don't understand." So the things in Europe a lot of times are kind of on the back. It's like it's almost like historically, you know, there was so many things that these people took over, these people, and this, and then you think of in the back of your head, you know, these people can't trust them, or things like that. Here, a lot more open, and it's because of the kind of the relative peace and prosperity that people have allowed themselves to be open, more open, and accepting, I think.
Yeah, you guys don't believe in classes, and you don't care who comes from where, and you guys don't care about this. It only matters what you bring to the table. And as far as opportunities, there is no other country on the planet Earth. I was visiting paradise like Switzerland, you know, very rich society, beautiful country, everything is perfect. But if you're not Swiss, you never was born there, you don't have grandparents in the cemetery, you're not going nowhere. Here, doesn't matter. If you're good at something, the doors are wide open. If you want to put some effort into it, you want to work hard, educate yourself, nothing will stop you here. Because you create value for someone else. And that's the most beautiful thing besides the personal freedoms in this country, in my opinion. The opportunities this country has to offer to anybody who wants to work. Even if you do mediocre job, like people from my country, that she's cleaning lady, he works on construction, they still can afford great life for themselves and their children, just working. They can buy a house, they can buy 2 houses, they can send kids to college. All of this can be done. That's what I did. I come here with $600 and speak English and end up in Manhattan kind of looking around, now what? I didn't know nobody, I didn't know what to do. But I find job 3 days later, I find job. You know, it's just, and I couldn't believe how much I can buy But my cultural shock was Germany, because I left Poland, I went first to Germany. When I went to grocery store, when I look around, I couldn't believe. I was thinking I'm dreaming. How is possible? There's like 16 type of ham, or 50 type of sausage. Beer, I don't want to even talk about. There's like 300 type of beer in the Bierstube in the basement. Then I went to like a, junkyard to see like used cars. And you can buy a Volkswagen Beetle for $50 and it's running. Yeah, for $50, like 100 Deutsche Mark. Buy that when they didn't have the stupid euro. And I'm against that, but that's a different story. You go to work on construction, carry bricks for the masons like I did, and I could buy a car in one day. That's like we says, it's 20 years of waiting period to even have a right to buy a car, or buy a black market junk for entire, savings of the family for 3 generations, I mean, I couldn't believe. Who lost the war here? That was my question, It was unbelievable. But still, Western Europe is not like here. That's the one difference over there. There is still a little bit like a class system to a certain extent. If my father was a lawyer and my mother, most likely I will be too. But if they were not, just cleaning lady and stuff, here it doesn't matter. Look at even some people who are extremely successful in this country, how they started very often from nothing. Usually that motivates them more than anybody. So that's one of the most beautiful things about this country, in my opinion.
Luke, I would say what stands out to me as a big difference is personal freedom, just being free. And I think of how many kids you can have. The government was telling you how many kids you can have. That's not personal freedom. For a long time it was 1, then it's 2, now it's 3 because they need more people. Or for the college kids that we taught, what major you're going to major in. We have a gal in our fellowship, Jean, who's now in Germany, but she has scored so high on her Gaokao, that test they take, that they want her in some scientific field. She just loves languages. She's in Germany now learning her 6th language after she graduated from college, but she had to go through the major they assigned her. That's an example. Home ownership. I'd love to own my own home, right? Most people do. Over in China, you can own a home for 70 years. That's how long you can own it. I think of Jack Ma. He was a pretty famous guy, right? Where he was worth, in 2020, he was worth $61.5 billion. Chinese businessman, but even he's on a leash. He kind of said something negative about a Chinese regulator, and within 3 years, $61.5 billion went down to $30 billion, and he was living in Japan. I think he's maybe back in China now, but not as a businessman. He's there as a teacher, as I understand. But, they could have taken all his money if they wanted to. So even a guy like Jack Ma, one of the richest guys in the world, was on a leash. So there just isn't really the personal freedom that we have here, in the United States. You certainly see that pretty obviously.
Yeah, it's that story about Rocky, nobody who have one chance and he fogged and changed his life. This is what America is. Keep it that way. Don't enslave yourself voluntarily. Why would you?
Yeah, I was gonna say is that while I was growing up, the movies, they always have big influence. But I usually saw only the movies that portrayed America bad that were actually allowed there. And we all know what actors usually are in those movies. They either show like a political system being corrupt because it happens to deal with that, or people are down, and hurting or something like that. So when VHS came out, then we kind of start to see some of the better,
cool
parts of America. But it was always so exciting for anybody because people knew to get something that was said made in USA. It was like, oh, hey, I got this. This is amazing. So it was really difficult when I came into the US and actually start finding something to send to my dad that wasn't actually US. It was, I think, made in China or someplace else. I was like, what's going on? So it was difficult to do that. So I also saw that as because the country that loses its production and moves into service society, would not be able to really survive long term, and especially, heaven forbid, there's some kind of conflict. If somebody else, your adversary, is providing you means you fighting them, then what do you think is going to happen, right? So I think lots of people are waking up now. I hope it's enough. Many times it's just the numbers game. If you can convince enough people that this guy is a horrible person, I know this guy's not as good, but this guy's so much worse than this, vote for this guy, then we're still in danger of getting this propaganda being pushed on us, and people are truly being more afraid, because fear is a lot more powerful than other things. But it's just, I'm hoping that lots of people will wake up and just look into their lives, what's going on, and see things turning better. So.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Marek, thank you. Tomas, Tim. We appreciate you guys coming and talking with us today. And thank you all for coming tonight. Hope you're all able to learn something and maybe take something away. But look forward to seeing you guys next month. But yeah, round of applause for these guys.